Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the books that I read in January, and there was some new and good things that I was able to get into. And so if you like these types of videos, please remember to subscribe and let's get into it. Okay, so I was able to read 3 books in January. Part of me feels like I'm cheating saying that, even though I read 3 books. 2 of them are like in the same series, so it feels kind of weird saying I read 3, even though I did. But I'm like, I didn't read a variety of books. I just read 2 that were within the same thing. So anyways, we're gonna talk about these and I'm excited to share my insights with you. Okay, the first 2 books that I read were actually recommended by someone here on YouTube, and it's a duology, which is weird. I don't know if I've ever just read a duology. That just sounds so weird to me to say that. So there's 2 books, and it's the Spellbreaker and the Spellmaker. And I started off, you recommended the Spellbreaker. I can't remember who it was. I'd have to go back and look through my comments. And it's a fantasy-ish book. It's a magical world, a type of a book. And I am not one that generally reads fantasy. I just never have really enjoyed fantasy. I don't really know why exactly. It's just never been my favorite genre. And even when like Harry Potter came out, I didn't want to read it. I just didn't care. My mom and my brother started reading it and I didn't really care. And it wasn't even until my husband and I, like, we were dating and engaged. There's a blur, I don't know which one it was, because we only dated really for like 6 weeks and then we're engaged for like 4 months. And so sometime during that period of time, he was talking about Harry Potter and how much he loved it, and he had brought it up several times, and I just never said anything that I hadn't actually read it. You know, so many people love Harry Potter, and I just always had the hardest time like really getting into it. And so I remember one time bringing it up, and he was like, "That's a deal breaker," like just joking, but not joking. And so when we would like see each other, he would start reading books. He'd start reading them to me. So he'd sit on the couch and he'd read Harry Potter to me. And it was really cute and funny. And I did get through, like, I kept reading because he started school, so we couldn't keep doing that. We couldn't keep reading together. At that point, we weren't married yet. And so I kept reading, I think, book 2 and 3, mostly by myself. And I tried to get through book 4, but I just couldn't. I don't know what it was. I just couldn't get through like the first 100 pages. It was so hard for me. And I've seen a few of the movies. I haven't seen all of them. We have tons of books. My kids have gone through some of the books with my husband, and I still just have not read them. So fantasy, I don't know if I knew exactly what to expect when I bought this book. I kind of read the, synopsis or whatever. And so then I start reading and I'm like, oh, this is like a fantasy book. It's not crazy fantasy. Some fantasy books are very extreme, and I don't feel like it's necessarily that way. But at first, it was a little bit hard for me to get into it or to stay with it or like understand what was going on, because it's explaining the magical world, right? And it has to go through what all the people can do and what a spellbreaker is, and a spell maker, those that do have powers, those that are able to break the spells. It describes, because there's some people that have like more physical powers, some that have spiritual powers. And so as it's explaining all these things, it was like a little overwhelming at the beginning. But then as you get into the story, I feel like just continuing to read and understanding the story, like it makes much more sense, once you like see it applied in the story. So I really liked it. So it takes place in London, I think in the 1800s. I can't even remember exactly what year it's supposed to be. It probably says on the 1895. Yeah, and so it talks mostly about that like area with magical powers and stuff. And there is a romance story that runs through it, so that's fun. It's not solely focused on that, but it does thread throughout the story. So I get to the end of this book and I'm like, I don't feel like this is like gonna finish. I don't have very many pages left. I don't think it's like gonna be done. And it wasn't until that point, like I'm basically done with this book, when I realized there's another book. And so then I had to order this one and wait for it for a few days. And so that wasn't fun, but it was fine. We live in a modern world that we are able to order books and have them like at our fingertips right away. So then I got this one, and this one does kind of like close up the story at the end and like the romance story and all that kind of stuff. So it is a fun story. I enjoyed reading it. It's very clean. So if you're concerned about those types of things, it was a very clean read with language and like sexual stuff. It was very clean, and so I always appreciate that. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Again, it wasn't too like fantastical. It was kind of just in a spot that was good for me, and I enjoyed the books once I was able to get into them and understand how the world worked. Okay, so the other book I read this month is Raising Positive Little People, and it was short, which was nice. That's one of the reasons why I read it. I was able to get through it pretty quickly. And I have read a good amount of parenting books and child development books, adolescent development books, and they all, you know, you kind of take and glean from it what applies to you, or maybe the stage of life you're in, or what you believe in, and different things like that. And this book I thought was really good, like a really good overview of a lot of different things I've read in parenting books, and put in a concise way. So if you just want, it's not all like completely bullet points. There are quite a few bullet points, but if you want something that kind of just makes parenting very concise, I feel like this is a good book. It gets straight to the point. It tells you what to focus on, what questions you could be asking, and all that kind of stuff. And I just feel like that was very helpful going through it, because sometimes bigger books, we don't first of all have time to read the bigger books, and then they just have so much information to digest that it's sometimes really hard for us to be like, wait, what should I get out of this? I don't really know. And so I like the bullet points because it helps you focus. But then I feel like at the end of most chapters, I don't know if it was every, but there was like a parental action plan. Again, an overview of what was talked about, and then some things like, oh, here's some questions you could think about, or maybe you could try this. So I really like that. And this book also at the very end talks a little bit about mindfulness and the power of mindfulness. So I appreciated that they added that. Something that I did really like in this book, it's under the Build Better Boundaries chapter, which I think is very, very important with kids and for parents, and we're not very good at it. There's a lot of people that are not very good at it, but it talks about why boundaries are important, and you know, goes through how boundaries help kids be safe, secure, have this stable environment. And everyone's boundaries will look a little bit different, you know, depending on kind of how they live their life. But the part that I really liked was it says too many parents lose their own identity as they raise their children because there are no boundaries to teach the child that their parent has other rules and interests too. Setting boundaries is essential for your child's emotional development. And I really loved that like small part of the paragraph, just because I totally believe that and I see it all the time. And I tell my kids that too. I'm like, my life isn't all about you. And I think we forget that. You know, some parents and moms especially, they feel guilty if their life isn't all about their kids, right? If they're not always playing with them or reading to them or whatever it is, then they've messed up as a mom, right? They haven't done what they're supposed to do. But I think it's also important to remember that we have interests, we have things that we like to do, and to tell our kids that. Be like, especially with my kids being homeschooled, this time is my time, okay? I have some work I need to get done. I want to do some reading. You guys have all these activities you can do. You can go watch your shows, whatever it is, and leave me alone. And you need to set those boundaries. Okay, they need to be there. Your whole day should not just be focused on your kids. Obviously, you're still taking care of them. You're making them food, you know, you're making sure they don't die. But everything is not just focused on them. You are a person. You need to take care of yourself, and they need to know that you're a person. They need to understand that there are boundaries there, and that mom and dad have needs. They have things they need to get done. And it can't just always be about what the kids want when they want it. And that's so, so important. So I really appreciated it. That was like one of my favorite parts in this book. I'm like, yes, star, 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 star. So again, if you want something that's kind of just a simplified, easy parenting book to get through, I would recommend this one. Okay, so those were the books I read in January. I have a whole bunch of books that I'm gonna try to get through in February. They just keep piling up from your recommendations, from book club recommendations, just all the things. So I'm hoping to get through them, but if you do have more recommendations, put them down below, because I still keep a running list and I'm always interested in what you guys have been reading or what you have liked lately. And remember to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.